Welcome to this explainer. We're skipping the usual intro stuff today because I want to jump straight into a seriously startling comparison that is going to completely change how you view your city's layout. We are unpacking exactly why Tokyo's transport system utterly beats Lusaka's. But more importantly, we'll see how that difference directly impacts your wallet, your free time, and ultimately where you can actually afford to live.
So let's kick things off by asking a question that seems incredibly simple on the surface. What actually determines the price of your house? Most of us instantly think it's the square footage, right? Or maybe the neighborhood, or having nice granite countertops. But there is this massive hidden variable that almost all of us completely ignore when we're calculating our true cost of living.
Chapter 1. The Hidden Housing Equation. To really grasp urban real estate, we first have to look at the unbreakable link between where you choose to live and how efficiently you can move around. Because here is the baseline equation. Your total cost of living equals your housing cost plus your transportation cost plus your time cost. You see, you aren't just paying for the property itself. You're constantly balancing your housing, your transport, and that invisible but absolutely exhausting tax of your time. Think about it. If you buy a cheaper house way out in the suburbs, but you have to drive 3 hours a day just to get to your job, are you actually saving money? Chapter 2, the Lusaka commuter trap. Okay, let's look at a real-world example of this going wrong. Lusaka is a rapidly growing city, but it's heavily dependent on private cars, minibuses, and just standard road transport. Because it lacks a commuter rail system or dedicated bus lanes, that equation we just talked about, it's actively breaking down and trapping residents. 2 to 4 hours. That is what commuters on major corridors in Lusaka, places like Great East Road or Cafe Road, are losing every single day to extreme, totally unpredictable gridlock. Just let that sink in for a second. That is lost family time, lost relaxation, and honestly, a massive drain on your mental well-being. But what's truly crazy is how that gridlock translates into cold, hard cash. Get this. A 2 million kwacha home located 35 kilometers away from work actually ends up costing you more than a 3 million kwacha home right in the center over time. No way, right? Well, actually, yes way. When you add up fuel, constant vehicle maintenance, transport fares, the depreciation of your car, and the sheer financial value of all that lost time, it completely wipes out the initial savings of moving out to cheaper areas like Lusaka West or Chongwen. So what we get is this intense economic fallout. Because commuting is just so physically and financially painful, everyone fights tooth and nail for central housing. And that triggers a domino effect. We're seeing skyrocketing property prices in central areas like Kabulonga. We've got high transport costs just eating up disposable income. And as people inevitably get priced out and pushed further to the edges, we get this unchecked, congested urban sprawl, which ironically just creates longer travel distances and even worse congestion. It's literally a vicious cycle. Chapter 3, Tokyo's transit-led miracle. All right, to see the ultimate solution to this mess, we have to cross the globe to Tokyo. This is a city that completely flips the script. Instead of letting urban sprawl dictate where they build roads, they put transportation infrastructure first. 30 to 60 kilometers. That is the radius we're talking about here. Thanks to an unbelievably punctual commuter rail, high-frequency metro systems, and deeply integrated bus services, Tokyo residents can comfortably live up to 60 kilometers away from the city center without absolutely ruining their day. You could literally live way out in Saitama or Chiba and still reach central Tokyo in exactly 1 hour by train. This is brilliant because reliable rail completely distributes housing demand across a massive metropolitan area. When you know you can live 60 kilometers away and still reliably get to work in an hour, it instantly takes the pressure off the central real estate market. People get to choose where they live based on their lifestyle, not because they're terrified of a nightmare commute. Chapter 4, A Tale of Two Cities. So, we've seen the real-world extremes, but let's break down the core mechanics of why this actually works. It really all boils down to two different transit speeds and the contrasting housing radii they create. Imagine a hypothetical city A with poor transit. We're talking an average speed of maybe a miserable 25 kilometers per hour. That practically means workers can only live within a 10-kilometer radius before the commute becomes impossible. So everybody competes for a tiny slice of land, which drives prices right through the roof. Now, contrast that with CDB, which has efficient transit averaging 70 to 100 kilometers per hour. Suddenly, a massive 40 to 50-kilometer living radius opens up. In this theoretical matchup, City B's fast transit unlocks thousands of extra affordable homes just because people can travel faster. And the real-world data absolutely backs this up. If we look at Lusaka compared to Tokyo and Shanghai, the contrast is super stark. Lusaka relies almost entirely on cars and minibuses, leading to sky-high housing pressure near the central business district and huge drops in productivity. On the flip side, Tokyo and Shanghai use rail and metro systems to keep housing pressure totally moderate and productivity loss incredibly low. It really proves that building rail isn't just about moving people from point A to point B, it is fundamentally about stabilizing the housing market. Chapter 5: Fixing the Future. So, the big question: how can a gridlocked city take these lessons and actually redraw its map for a more affordable, sustainable future?
The answer lies in transit-oriented development, or TOD. We see this working incredibly well in places like China. It follows a very specific sequence. First, you construct the metro or rail station. Then, second, you build residential apartments right nearby. Third, you bring in the shopping centers and schools. And finally, fourth, you build office spaces. You end up creating these highly walkable, compact communities that are entirely centered around a transport hub. You aren't building a subdivision and hoping someone paves a road later, you are building the transit first.
Which brings us to a potential blueprint for Lusaka. Imagine strategically investing in a bus rapid transit network, complete with dedicated lanes, plus a commuter rail linking places like Chongwei, 10 Miles, and Kafue. Pair that with high-density housing right near the transit stops and solid park-and-ride facilities. Lusaka could instantly convert its cheaper, distant suburbs into highly desirable, super accessible neighborhoods. It spreads out the growth and absolutely lowers the cost of living for everyone. It really all comes back to this powerful takeaway from our data. Efficient transportation expands people's effective housing choices. At the end of the day, building better transit isn't just about cutting down traffic. It is arguably the single most effective tool a city has to make the total cost of living actually manageable. It genuinely gives you the freedom to choose where you live. So, I'll leave you with this to chew on. Before you endure your next painful commute, look around and ask yourself, is your city truly investing in your time and your affordability by expanding your actual housing choices? Or are they just pouring more asphalt and trapping you in that exact same equation? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it completely reframed how you look at the streets outside your window. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.